When it comes to silence in real life, we feel it in a lot of ways. We go to sleep, and while some of us like a bit of white noise, I like to sleep in an absence of sound. It puts my mind at ease knowing it's just me in my room, asleep in my bed, and then the next day arrives. It exists in a prolonged sense, but also in shorter moments. Before a movie starts, the screens are being adjusted, the lights are being dimmed, and everyone is waiting with bated breath to hear the silence be broken by the rumble of high-definition speakers and blinding laser graphics of the theater. When it comes to games, I think silence takes on a whole different role due to the genius of the art. Whether it's a spectacle of silence with the environment and surroundings, depicting the concept of silence as a person or an object, or an existential experience that drags you into the lack of action, the expanding expanse of silence is ever consuming. I want to take a look at how some games use silence as a storytelling tool to consume the player in its quietness, and what it means to us as players to have such grand experiences that in a world with the internet and technological progression are very important to take in and understand. Where did I get the idea for this video, you may ask? Well, let's get into the sunny and whimsy world of web fishing. A social game about some cute little animals on an island fishing for money and then gambling it away on scratch tickets. It's a chat room that comes with a game attached, and unless you've played the game and haven't just seen the MLG trick shots posted on TikTok, then I'm assuming you don't understand what I mean about this game embodying silence. There's plenty of glitches littered through the map, and when you enter the hub building in a server, you can place a flag for your private island, teleport there and back, and you find yourself out of bounds where everything is treated as water. You can even get to a complete void by reaching the border and jumping off, teleporting you to a space devoid of life. It was when my friend introduced me to this space and we spent an hour fishing there that it struck me. I was minding my own business where, like a baby learning about object permanence for the first time, I suddenly became aware of the sound coming through my headphones. The sole sound of my friend's fishing pole reeling back in. The constant clicking was met with nothing, and it resounds through my head till this day. It's not as if it's some new core memory of mine, but when I came up with the idea to write this video, it struck me that we don't get a lot of these moments in games. Whether it's music, sound effects, or general ambience, there's always something to fill in the gaps between action and amazing spectacles. It was then that it struck me that silence isn't only limited to its literal meaning when we're talking about games as an art form. Take the next game, Hollow Knight, for example. Even the opening scene where you fall from above the cavern to Hollow Nest is completely silent, only broken by the echoing thump of your landing. When you roll into town, it is the definition of a ghost town. There's residents of the village, but no hustle and bustle. It is my favorite depiction of dead silence. When we say a place is dead silent, you can't help that the world will continue to turn and make sound without the presence of people in the setting. This instance is the exact same. You arrive, and the wind is the majority of the sound playing through your headphones. Throughout the game, you explore Hollow Nest and discover many of the great memories that still lay in this kingdom. At some point, the town does grow in activity. Traders and other residents set up shop and interact with you throughout your adventures, but at the same time, the underground turns perilous. It grows more dangerous to explore the caverns, and as you near the end of your adventure, everything seems to be in chaos. It feels like the ebb and flow of the world is destined to have some sort of dead silence in some way, shape, or form. But is this true for only Hollow Knight, or for all universes we have grown to love? Take the game Slay the Princess as an example. A simple story where you are a hero here to slay a princess in order to save the world. From the bat, you are expected by the narrator to kill her at any cost, but the heroic voice in you begs you to at least hear her out in case this is an innocent person we're dealing with. That is about as large as the cast gets. We have you, the player, the narrator egging you on, the princess locked away in the cabin, and then the voices that pop up as you go down different routes dealing with the princess. I'd say that this setting gives a feeling of loneliness with the environment being confined to just these main players and the cabin, but it is anything except quiet. Dialogue is the main vehicle in this story, and it is punctual and perfect anytime anything happens and you need to find the words to describe what you are seeing. Through fantastical elements, there's never any true silence in this game. Instead, there's a concept, a place in the game that is nowhere and everywhere at the same time that acts as the physical representation of silence. The long quiet is where you go once you have fully gone down a route. Every single time, you are led there by unknown powers, and it is only you that is whole and conscious here. Nothing goes on here. The typical trees and sky that is sketched out around and above you are forsaken for a weaving of space-time fabric that may scare some, but if you take another look at it, these walls to your space look almost comfortable, as if every time you experience agony and suffering from the princess or by your own doing, doing, you always return to the space that acts as a reprieve from the rest of the world. You don't even know if this space is a part of the universe you reside in. From what we could surmise, the long quiet is an abstraction of what nothing is. Where you might find empty space where something is missing, the long quiet is that space and more. It might even be qualified as something rather than nothing. It's ever expansive, and I believe the phrase dead silence can very much drill into your head the concept of what the long quiet is. It is that in both the literal sense and an existential sense. We could go deeper into what the long quiet is, but I want to save that for another video. Our main takeaway right now is that the long quiet is a space representing silence and acts as a space of comfort where one can rest. It speaks volumes to our real lives, some of us finding peace within the time we have by ourselves, but that others find themselves grinding their teeth together in an attempt to keep up pestering thoughts and destructive habits. Silence isn't always the best for everyone, and I think Slay the Princess represents only one aspect of what silence means in our lives. Acting as a concept and setting in this game, I think the expanse of silence is a lot larger than we once thought. Living in modern times, we don't always need to be wary in a fit of survival instincts coming out and trying to listen for any dangers out in a space completely devoid of sound. The game itself is very existential in that way, but let's reel it back a bit and return to Hollow Knight. In this game, you find many spaces that are lonesome. It might be a body of water or a lone cave with no residents. This loneliness is, this time, accompanied by silence, bringing you the ambience of hollowness, whether it be wind whooshing through the pockets and curvature of the walls, or water dripping down from the stalagmites that are positioned on the roof of the caves. This is Hollow Nest in its perfect equilibrium. Even while exploring other avenues of the cave, the foreign sounds are those that come from your nails striking one of the wildlife in the area. So do we consider the normality of an environment and the sounds that come with it silence? Is it only when an outside force breaches the peace of a space that we consider it to be a disruption of sound? Or does the ambience that belongs to a location count as its own tune, one that sings its way into our mind as we reminisce on our memories of a place? It is nearly impossible for a place to have complete silence. There are special rooms designed with acoustics for this exact phenomenon, and there are natural wonders in the world that replicate this feeling. You could make the argument that silence is the natural state of noise in an environment, which then brings into question what games depict this sort of experience. Welcome to GTFO, a stealth horde shooter that uses elements of horror and suspense to build up its atmosphere to an unsettling miasma. You are dropped in from above the surface, down underground where unthinkable horrors await you and your squad. The players are the intruder, and you are invading a space that never should have seen the light of day. This environment, for whatever reason, exists entirely on its own. It used to be run by people, but it's been abandoned, and your objective is to retrieve samples and such to bring back to the surface. The enemies, strange alien-like creatures, are rather docile when left alone or in their packs. It's the disruption you cause within their senses that they become aggravated and start becoming violent. Sleepers, as they're called, and their many other mutations react to sound for the most part. When you move, they pick up the noise of your boots hitting the ground, kicking up dust and vibrating the floor. It is something that is foreign to them, and much as humans react to something completely foreign to them, the sleepers tend to scrutinize and become wary of the disturbance that has come upon them. It's for good reason as well. In order to progress through the facilities of this factory-esque camp, you are required to kill some of these aliens. Simply, it's an evolutionary survival trait the sleepers have picked up to combat anything that might cause them harm. And when they detect this, they react violently in an attempt to snuff out the danger. As described, this is all because the homeostasis of their environment has been polluted. Silence is an essential feature of this game. You must be quiet in your infiltration, quickly and quietly striking the weak points of the sleepers in a coordinated effort in order to avoid the vast hordes of aliens that may attack you if you alert them. From small rooms to the entire factory coming alive, the danger that may come from a blunder is too unpredictable, making the best way to go about this operation a silent killer. Your guns are too much of a piercing sound, bouncing off the walls and into other rooms in order to use safely. The flashlight you have on you can also alert the sleepers, showing that they've evolved to notice more than one discrepancy. GTFO uses silence as a mechanic to curate the strategy of the player and layering on the fear of making a misstep within the confines of this hell pit. This game is a perfect depiction of silence being the normality of the sounds within. In the factory, creaks and wind are normal to be heard within the facility, but once any other sound is made outside of that range, then there is something afoot within the aliens' minds that they must eliminate. Despite being nothing more than a stealth horde shooter, this game describes the concept of silence in an insightful way to our study. Going back to Hollow Knight, and I'm sorry that I'm bringing this game up so much, it is just such a treasure trove for game analysis. Going back to Hollow Knight, there is a place deep within the reaches of Hollownest, an area that I might even argue should be closed off entirely for the good of the residents in the town. It is called Deep Nest, and it is one of the scariest places to be in Hollow Knight. Riddled with spiders, bugs, and whatever earthly horrors lurk in between the tunnels of Hollownest, Deep Nest holds a horror that is very tangible. Dangers hiding everywhere and ready to pluck you from the dirt that you walk upon. In terms of atmosphere, it is definitely eerie and off-putting, the kind of environment that the game throws you into without a warning or second thought. This perfectly encapsulates the meaning of disturbances being sound, while innate sound is silence. These bugs feast upon outsiders normally, and seeing as you, the player, enter as an outsider, the bugs are no longer sticking to themselves but burrowing, trying to find any way to feast on your body. This is also a survival instinct, but rather than ensuring protection for the moment, it ensures they can live past today. The last point I want to cover about Hollow Knight is one of its most haunting areas, bordering on uncanny. The void, being at the absolute bottom of Hollownest, is a makeup of one of the elements that the world of Hollow Knight consists of. It's the void. The place is the literal name of the element. When you reach this area, you gain many upgrades such as empowered spells, now utilizing the full power of void. While obtaining these, the dangers of the void will not let up unless you cross off some tasks to gain the respect of the power of the void. But this is all related to the game mechanics, and I believe the void is here to represent a much wider concept in terms of the world and our reality. Involving the Pale King and the kingdom in its entirety, void as a power is more than just a buff to your abilities. It is a force that traps and enables fantastical things to occur. You could say that it's the essence of silence, both in its appearance and powers, allowing for the Hollow Knight to be sealed away to avoid dangers from escalating to a whole other level. It's used to enhance world building and storytelling in the game we all know and love. I believe this is the cream of the crop use of silence in any game, combining the existential representation with its utility in the telling of a story or an in-depth description of the setting. The final game I am going to talk about, and a great example of silence, is Gris. This is one of my favorite recent games, as I held off playing it for a long time due to my inability to focus on any one little thing. Gris throws you into its intro, the music accompanied by beautiful singing, but not too soon after, the voice of the protagonist is cut off, being silenced and no longer able to hum its beautiful tune. From here on after, much of the game is only filled with ambience and the soundtrack, which is astoundingly beautiful all on its own. It deserves an award for the atmosphere that these elements alone are able to create, but this isn't the only premium form of storytelling that the game uses. The gameplay doesn't provide much, but it doesn't need to. With the lack of dialogue to formulate what is happening on the screen, you look towards the audio cues and visuals to make up for what's missing. The story features a vibrant and prominent use of color, unlocking the world around you as you progress and bringing back this decrepit world from the brink of ruin by unleashing the flow of colors that was missing from its surroundings. From desert to lush forest, the colors allow for an environment plentiful in life, but still a reminder that you are alone in this world. Having your voice taken away from you, the protagonist tries to convey their emotions through other means, and that is found through the colors and the songs fitting for the tranquil yet suspenseful adventure. You don't know what's going to happen, yet at the same time, you are filled with peace. Silence is used not as a front and center feature, but as a guidance for the other aspects of the game to shine through. In the absence of sound, the myriad of hues and tones illuminates what life you are bringing back to this world, and the music accompanies this odyssey of reviving what once was, and enhances the player's imaginative experience where there isn't much direct storytelling that is happening. In the larger scope of the world, the silence in the beginning also encapsulates this universe as one that is forgotten. Even as you approach the statues of idolized figures, obelisks of what once was an icon of praise and comfort, now broken and coming apart, the silence grows all that much louder despite the surroundings coming to life and meeting you in the middle, giving you enough vitality but leaving you still lonely and surrounded by the stillness of sound. In all honesty, there isn't much else to be said about Gris in this aspect. I could describe more, but this intro, barely told in the first half hour of the playtime, is enough for you to understand the power of silence in video games. In an industry riddled with so much information on your screen with sounds that alert you to changing aspects of your surroundings, the space for the player to come to their own conclusions or a reprieve to think things through about what they've seen is a valuable treasure we should cherish. Despite spaces where you stop by the benches in Hollow Knight is priceless, as it's an escape and type of silence that is comforting. Getting to the long quiet and slay the princess gives you the opportunity to learn more about the world and process everything you've been going through. Webfishing is all about taking in the scenery and the silence with friends, even if it is just an empty black void. Games aren't the only space where we should appreciate silence. While I hate constant fast-paced environments found in the competitive shooters, there's more things in our lives we should worry about. In my life, I think I want to live and savor the times of silence that I do have. Camping is one of my favorite pastimes, and while I can't go out to my favorite spots all too often, I want to live my life out to the fullest by doing nothing and basking in the silence. I think this could be said for friend groups, and I'm glad I'm surrounded by people where I can have comfortable silences when we need to have them, either out of necessity for our processing minds or as we're passing time engrossed in our own activities and enjoying each other's company. There are plenty of experiences out there where silence should be valued and cherished. As this video comes out, Christmas will already be over. I will probably already be working on my next video or lazing around. I mean, can't really tell with my abhorrent work ethic, but I encourage all of you to look for those moments of silence. Remember, it doesn't need to be dead silent, but the definition of silence that resounds with you the most, whether it's no noise or the baseline of noise in the environment or something completely different that I didn't cover in this video. Just do what you do best. Welcome to the end of the video where I promote everything else I have going on. Remember, if you enjoy videos like these, subscribe because there's a lot more of these where this came from. Like it because it always helps the video more than it hurts it. If you want to support me just a tiny bit more, check out my Patreon where I post sneak peeks to my upcoming videos, journal entries, and the occasional special treat or look behind the scenes. Besides that, find me on other social media platforms such as Blue Sky, and I hope you all have a great end to your year. Enjoy it with others or in silence by yourself, whatever you find the most comfortable. See you all later, you cool people.